Buckingham Palace, official London residence of Britain's sovereign since 1837, is probably one of the world's most famous addresses, with an exterior that's familiar to all, yet an interior that's wrapped in mystery. Its quadrangle and grand entrance is the ceremonial centrepiece for the nation's welcome, be it to kings, queens, presidents or diplomats. And it also provides the same welcome when, for a select number of days a year, the doors of the grand entrance are open to recipients and their guests to receive their honour at the investiture ceremony. Nowadays, tens of thousands of people see the state rooms and gardens either as guests to one of the series of summer garden parties or as visitors to the summer opening every August and September. But very few get this special invitation. A short walk from Buckingham Palace across Green Park at St James's Palace is the central chancery of the Orders of Knighthood. It's part of the Lord Chamberlain's office and is responsible for governing the Orders of Chivalry and maintaining the records of all appointments, promotions and deaths within the order. They also take the lead in organising investitures and the sending out of invitations, together with warrants signed by the Queen.
How many have we got then for tomorrow, Rachel?
We were 95 people coming today, but I'm afraid we've lost one. Mr Mason has gone into hospital, and so we're down to 94.
94. And how many guests now, do you think?
279 guests.
279.
One gentleman is apparently slightly deaf, but I think he wears a hearing aid.
He's got a hearing aid, and there's no need for a sign language interpreter,
no,
is there?
Not this time. No.
Well, I think that's it. I think we've covered all the points now.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Following the compilation of the New Year and the Queen's birthday honours lists, the details of the awards are first checked against records held by the Central Chancery before being sent for publication in the London Gazette. When the various insignia arrive from the manufacturers, each decoration is very carefully scrutinised for blemishes and then stored in the Central Chancery's vaults to await its recipient. At 8 o'clock in the morning, London is already alive to another working day, and for the select 100 men and women who are anxiously making their way to the capital, it's the culmination of many weeks of preparation. It's the day of their investiture at Buckingham Palace. Preparations at the palace are well underway. Everything in the state rooms, including the ballroom, scene of many state and official occasions, and where today's investiture will take place, are given detailed and careful attention. As the gates of Buckingham Palace are open to the recipients and their guests, up in the ballroom, final checks are being made by the Secretary of the Central Chancery of the Orders of Knighthood, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Matheson. A select number of investitures are held at Buckingham Palace each year, spread over dates covering all the seasons, when recipients and their guests are treated to a sumptuous display of art and indeed history as they carefully make their way through this imperial palace. The honour honours system and the concept of the investiture as we know it today is relatively new, given that the history of the monarchy spans over 1,000 years. Honours for chivalry have been around for centuries, but it was largely due to the Queen's grandfather, George V, who in 1917 established the Order of the British Empire so that honours could be more widely given to deserving citizens from all walks of life, men and women, for their contribution to the war effort. With the ending of the First World War and the armistice in 1918, the King extended the range of recipients to include those from the world of science, the arts and literature, as well as the voluntary and charitable sectors. The investiture is a very special occasion, and each recipient will take away an impression of magnificent sights and sounds that will be long remembered and talked about. Part of that occasion is given by the Yeomen of the Guard arriving here from their headquarters at St James's Palace. Created by Henry VII in 1485 after his victory at the Battle of Bosworth Field, they're not only the oldest of the royal bodyguards, having given long and faithful service to the sovereign for over 500 years, but they're also the oldest military corps in the United Kingdom and probably the world. There is no doubt that investitures are stage-managed with military precision. Each recipient must be in the right place at the right time, be briefed as to what to expect when reaching the dais and what to do once the honour has been presented. The timing is well rehearsed and must be accurate for it all to begin at 11 o'clock. The Green Drawing Room, the first of the state rooms at the top of the grand staircase, is richly furnished and includes chairs made in the 1820s for Windsor Castle. It has a grand piano purchased by George IV in 1820, originally destined for the music room gallery at Brighton Pavilion. It's just one of the many staterooms frequently used for receptions. But today, while the room is readied and the props are set, there's time for new knights to get acquainted.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Can I ask you to gather with your backs to the...
Their briefing is carried out by the Comptroller of the Lord Chamberlain's office, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Ford.
The investiture will start at 11 o'clock in half an hour or so, and will be taken by the Duke of Cambridge today. I think the best thing I can do is to walk myself through the procedure that you'll be going through, and I'm going to start that by standing in that doorway there, which will absolutely replicate a door that you'll find yourself standing in at the head of a queue, looking into the ballroom, and from there I shall set the scene. I'll do it in a very abbreviated way, and take any questions should you have them afterwards. Charlotte sets you off. Forward you come up alongside Oliver here. Wait to hear surname. Surname is called. Forward you go. Turn, face Prince William, tip of the head. Curtsy is appropriate. Forward you go. Now, for two of you, and only two of you, the stool will be in the way. And let's just be clear on that. Sir Marcus, thank you. And Sir Michael, thank you very much. For you two gentlemen, the stool, clearly you ought to be knighted. So foot up against the edge of the stool, and you'll have a chance to practice this in a moment. Take the handle in your right hand, go down, nice resting motion on your right knee, keeping your head erect, and the Duke of Cambridge will place firstly on your right shoulder, then your left shoulder the sword. There are no words said at all after that. There's no arise, Sir Hero, I'm afraid, or anything like that. So touch, stand up. He won't invite you to stand up, simply stand up and move to the left of the stool. For everybody else here, you simply come forward after your bow or curtsy, toes to the edge of the dais, receive your rewards, conversation, handshake, reverse. Just come back a couple of paces, dip of the head, curtsy, right turn.
George IV's original palace lacked a large room for state and official entertaining. But Queen Victoria rectified that shortcoming by adding the ballroom in the mid-1850s. First used in 1856 for a grand ball to celebrate the ending of the Crimean War. These days, it's one of the rooms used for the annual diplomatic reception, attended by 1,500 guests, ambassadors, diplomats and their wives, accredited to the court of St. James. It's also the setting for state banquets, concerts and performances of the arts. Way back in 1856, it had the distinction of being the largest room in London, but today it's just the largest room in Buckingham Palace. At 122 feet long, 60 feet wide and 45 feet high, the ballroom could, with clever stacking, accommodate 56 double-decker London buses.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You'll probably have read in the Blue Book what goes on during the investiture, but I thought it might be of interest if I were to describe it again now that you're here in the ballroom. About 27 investitures are held each year, and on some occasions the Queen is represented by the Prince of Wales, the Princess Royal, or, as is the case today, the Duke of Cambridge. Investitures in London are always held in this ballroom, which is used on all state occasions, including state banquets. Shortly after I've finished speaking, 5 yeomen of the Queen's bodyguard, of the yeomen of the guard, will enter the ballroom and take up positions on the dais. The yeomen of the guard are the oldest royal bodyguard in the world and have been founded in 1485 in the reign of Henry VII. At 11 o'clock, the Duke of Cambridge and his party will enter the ballroom by the door here on my left, escorted by 2 Gurkha orderly officers. This is a custom installed by Queen Victoria in 1876. Please stand when the royal party enters the ballroom. A string orchestra from the band of the Household Division, under the direction of Major Paul Wilman of the Life Guards, will play the national anthem. Please remain standing until His Royal Highness bids you to be seated. The investiture then begins. The Earl Peel, the Lord Chamberlain, announces the name of each recipient who will enter through the door on my right. After being invested, recipients will leave through the door on my left and then re-enter at the rear of the ballroom to take their seats. At the end of the ceremony, the Lord Chamberlain will come forward and stand in front of His Royal Highness. This is the signal for everyone to stand, and the orchestra plays the national anthem. After His Royal Highness has withdrawn, would you please leave by the door through which you entered? Your friends and relations who have been decorated will meet you at the back of the ballroom as you leave. There are today 83 ladies and gentlemen for investiture, and the ceremony will take about an hour or an hour and 10 minutes. Thank you.
Before the ballroom became the centre for state entertaining, Queen Victoria used the picture gallery for large banquets. It's 155 feet long, the length of 2 tennis courts, and was designed by John Nash, as were many of the state rooms, for George IV to display his outstanding collection of Dutch and Flemish pictures, many of which still hang here. When completed by Nash in the late 1820s, it lacked good light and therefore was not a great success as a gallery built to display fine works of art. And it wasn't until 1914, under Queen Mary's guidance, that it was remodelled to include natural daylight and top lighting, which is how we see it today. There are pictures here that were collected by Charles I, Frederick Prince of Wales, eldest son of George II, by George III, George IV and Queen Victoria.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen. God, I'm being completely ignored, really, aren't I? Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Can I actually come forward, please?
Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Ford calms any apprehension and nerves with good humour and advice.
My job to explain what's going on over the next hour or so. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The investiture will commence at 11 o'clock this morning, and it takes place in the ballroom, which is some distance behind me, and we'll get you there in groups shortly before 11 o'clock, sort of halfway between here and Victoria Station behind me, I guess, really. And through a series of staterooms, we'll get you into a room that runs alongside the ballroom and get you to a doorway where you'll re-enter the ballroom to receive your awards today. Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, taking the investiture today, starting at, say, 11 o'clock, finish about 12:15, something in that order. I think the best thing I can do is to walk myself through the procedure that you'll be going through and take any questions you do so, have them afterwards. And I'm going to start that by standing in this doorway here behind me, which will replicate a doorway that you'll find yourself standing in at the head of a queue looking into the ballroom. I think I'll set the scene from there. No initiative whatsoever required in any of this, okay? We'll get you there to this point without you having to do any thinking for this at all. And as you get to this point, you'll find yourself at the head of a queue looking in. If you look to your right, you'll see 260 or so of your guests seated, looking in the direction that I'm pointing to at the moment. High right above them, in a gallery, is an orchestra playing music. And where the bulk of you are presently standing will be a low dais, about 6 inches high, 20 feet broad, centred upon which will be the Duke of Cambridge today, members of the Queen's household around him. Central amongst them will be the Earl Peel, the Lord Chamberlain, who will be making announcements over a public address system as to who you are, why you're here, and what award you're about to receive. Opposite you, and a much greater distance than those doors are away from me now, will be another set of doors, which is your exit route. 3 people central to your lives as you stand in this doorway. Directly on your left, and clearly not here at the moment, will be Charlotte Martin of the Lord Chamberlain's office, whose job it is to set you off at the appropriate moment. And you're heading towards Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Breakwell, Gentleman Usher of the Queen, who is your last safe port of call. Just remember the no initiative bit. Until you reach him, there's nothing at all. After that, a little bit of free thinking. Beyond him, Air Vice Marshal David Hobart, also Gentleman Usher of the Queen, who's marking that exit route that I touched on earlier. That's the scene set. I hope you have that in your mind. Okay, so what happens? Charlotte will set you away at the appropriate moment, and off you go. And you'll be going a much greater distance than I'm presently walking until you reach Oliver here. And I'd ask you, when you get here, to wait, please. And wait exactly as I am standing in relation to him at the moment, my shoulder against his chest. And you're waiting, ladies and gentlemen, to hear your surname from the public address system. Never mind the words said about you beforehand or the words about you afterwards, but it's the surname that's the trigger for you to move forward. If you miss that for some extraordinary reason, you're going to get a reminder, I might say. So, surname is called, forward you go, 2 or 3 paces that it takes to center yourself upon the Duke of Cambridge. Turn and face him, please. For the gentleman here, what follows is a neck bow, simply like that. Place your chin on your chest, nothing from the waist or anything like that. Chin on chest, and for the ladies here, as best you can, certainly better than I'm about to do, a curtsy, please. And forward you go. Forward you go until the point that your toes reach the edge of the dais upon which he is standing. Do not climb onto the dais, please. We've seen it all before, I can tell you. And when you get here, he'll give you your awards. And I see you've got hooks now on your lapels, and onto those hooks will go, in the case of the ladies, will go a brooch. In the case of the gentleman here, will go a medal. And during the course of that giving, there'll be a conversation, a 2-way conversation between yourself and he, and it comes to an end when he offers you his hand. Take it, shake it. Go back a couple of paces, please, just to give yourself a little bit of distance. Dip of the head again from the gentleman. Curtsy from the ladies. Turn to the right, past David here, through the exit doors. What happens when you go through those doors, you're going to meet members of staff again who are going to take the awards back off you, box them up, give them back to you, and we're going to usher you into the rear of the ballroom, give you a seat to witness the balance of proceedings. Pretty straightforward, I think you'll agree. I can't boil it down any more than that, I'm afraid. Okay, what else can I tell you? Ladies, we'll take your handbags off you before you go through this procedure, and I guess depending on the quality of your cuts, you'll get them back afterwards. And how do we address the Duke of Cambridge? Your Royal Highness to start with, sir, as the conversation develops. Sir, from start to finish, if you're more comfortable, certainly he won't mind. That's great. Any questions? Good. Thank you very much indeed. We'll pick you up just for 11 o'clock, and that'd be great. Thank you very much indeed.
Bodyguard. Slow. Mark.
The scene is set, the briefings are over, and the investiture is about to begin. It's 11 o'clock. On view throughout the palace is a treasure trove of art that establishes the royal collection as one of the major collections in the world today. There is a feast of fine paintings by such great European masters as Rubens, Vermeer, Rembrandt, Van Dyck, Poussin, Zuccarelli and Canaletto. There can be few waiting rooms in the world which offer their visitors such a wonderful display of original art as these staterooms give today's recipients and their guests. Honours and awards are not given lightly. They've been justly earned, and the investiture ceremony is the country's acknowledgement of that particular achievement. Many countries in the world today have honours and awards of one sort or another, but nowhere is the bestowing of titles and decorations performed in such splendid surroundings and with such grace, style and ceremony.
Mr. Jon Davis, for services to children's literature.
Each investiture lasts a little over an hour and brings together not only those whose achievements may not have been brought to our attention by the media, but also those who have not sought publicity but brought to the fore by the investiture ceremony. As today's investiture comes to an end, there can be little doubt that the day will have given lasting pride and pleasure to all.
Was rather surprised that it was Prince William, because until we came in this morning we hadn't a clue who was doing it. It was a unique event as far as I'm concerned.
He very much focuses on you. He's incredibly adept at making you feel at ease and also putting the focus on you because it's your award.
He was very easy to talk to, very personable. He listened to me personally, and I got the impression that he understood a little bit about my award, and given that he handed out scores of awards today, that was very impressive.
He really put me at ease. I walked towards him and I thought I'm going to wobble here and not get it right, but he was absolutely lovely.
I think the conversation also I had with Prince William was very interesting. He obviously had done homework, and I was able to have a chat with him about my work.
He was so relaxed and so lovely to speak to, and it's just something that I'm going to remember for a long, long time. It's just so lovely.
The whole atmosphere of the day really was extremely awe-inspiring, and to be in the same room with so many fantastic people was a real privilege.